All right, so let's look at the following example. A soft drink maker claims that a majority of adults prefer its leading beverage over that of its main competitors. To test this claim, 500 randomly selected people were given the two beverages in random order to taste. Among them, 270 preferred the drink maker's brand, 211 preferred the competitor's brand, and 19 could not make up their minds. Determine whether there is sufficient evidence at the 5% level of significance to support the soft drink maker's claim against the default that the population is evenly split in its preference. Okay, so first, before we can determine if we can do a hypothesis test for a large number of data, we have to test this interval and see whether or not this interval is between 0 and 1. If so, we can use our standard normal z-chart when we get ready to do our hypothesis test. So let's first calculate p hat. And this little symbol, p with the little caret over the top, is often called p hat. So when you see me write this, I'm finding that p with the caret over it. All right, so p hat is going to be 270 out of 500 because there were 270 people who liked the brand over 500. And if we put that into our calculator, that is 0.54. All right, so let's fill in now to our interval that we have to calculate. It's going to be 0.54 minus 3 times the square root of 0.54 times 1 minus 0.54, divided by 500 in the sample space. And then, of course, the other end of that is just the plus of that. All right, so if we put these in our calculator, each of these two calculations, the first one ends up giving us 0.473, and the second calculation gives us 0.607. And these two values are between 0 and 1, so we are good in assuming that this is a large sample hypothesis test. Okay, so with that in mind, let's go through to our hypothesis test. Let's start with our null hypothesis. Now it said to support the soft drinkers make against the default that the population is evenly split in its preference. So our default is going to be is that the population population proportion is just 0.5. Okay, that is 50% like one brand, 50% like the other brand. All right, but of course the manufacturer's claim is that more like their brand. So we want the proportion to be greater than 0.5 for this particular brand. Okay, so let's notice all of our information. We know how p hat from up above. We know that n, if it won't keep capitalizing on me, is 500. Okay, so first, let's go and get what corresponds to our 5% level of significance. Now, alpha is going to be 0.05, but since this is a right-tailed test, this is pointing to the right, when we look up the proportion in our z calculation, we need to look up the area that is to the left, and 0.05 is going to be to the right for our hypothesis test, but what will be to the left of that 0.05 will be 0.95. And we'll do this anytime we have an alternate hypothesis that is greater than whatever we're looking at. So let's look up 0.95, and again, I'm going to use StatTrek because it's nice and quick. If I didn't accidentally close it, no, here it is. Okay, and I'm going to put in 0.95 instead of 0.05. That's very important. All right, and so now if we calculate, it tells us it's 1.645. All right, so Z is 1.645. There's our critical value. So Since this is a right-tailed test, we're going to do our test statistic, and if our test statistic is bigger than or to the right of 1.645, we will reject the null hypothesis. All right, so let's do our test statistic. I've kind of put the formula here, and I didn't mean to do that. All right, so let's go ahead and fill in. All right, so our p hat was 0.54. P sub 0 is the p in our null hypothesis, so it's 0.5, divided by the square root. P0 again is 0.5, and Q0 will be 1 minus 0.5, so it too will be 0.5, divided by our sample size of 500. And if we stick all this into our calculator, we will get 0.04 on top, divided by 0.022361 on the bottom, and that's going to end up being 1.789. All right, let's notice that 1.789 is to the right of 1.645, meaning it's in our rejection region, so therefore we are going to reject the null hypothesis. All right, so let's write our conclusion. There is significant evidence, and we can say alpha is 0.05, to reject the null hypothesis. It appears that more than 50% of people prefer this soft drink brand.